Welcome to Hip Hop Now Podcast. If you're from the future, you know what to do. Get your ass out of here. Don't disrespect the legend. Hip hop is here to stay. Let's get right into the business. What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now Podcast, a podcast designed to keep you caught up on all things hip hop, music, and culture that happen throughout the week. Big shout out to the supporters of this podcast over at patreon.com/hiphopnow. And if you would like to become a Patreon supporter, click the link in the description of this episode. And if you don't know how to spell Patreon, it's fine. This is judgment-free zone. If you know how to spell Patron, it's kind of close to that. Just look for it. All right. Also, big shout out to the subscribers to this podcast in audio form first, because they have been supporting this podcast throughout the year. So I appreciate you. Keep reviewing on Apple Podcasts. I'm 5 out of 5. But you know, when you're 5 out of 5 and you got 7 reviews, that's not saying much, is it? Right? So if you listen on Apple Podcasts, please go and review the podcast. Also, big shout out to those who have joined me in the 50th year hip hop on YouTube. Sure, the audio used to be available all the time on YouTube, but people want to see it, brother. So now here I am in the Dungeons of Rap. And if you're listening and you don't see this, the link to the video is also around. And I got like stuff from my garage that's like hip hop related and games and stuff. And look at that, y'all. Even the microphone's in the shot. Check that out. Boom, boom, in the shot. But it's kind of cool though, like that, right? It's dope. Nevertheless, big shout out to hiphopdx.com, allhiphop.com, and a couple places where I'm getting some of these stories from. First and foremost, before I even go there, Morgan State University. I am an alumni of Morgan State University, and I want to just say that my prayers, my thoughts are with the families and the students and the faculty at Morgan State University, where there was an active shooter on campus this past week. A couple of people got hit. Thankfully, it wasn't fatal for none of them, but nevertheless, it's still a traumatic experience for people. It should never be normalized to be fine when they're shooting around. Unfortunately, I grew up in a situation and neighborhood and all that good stuff where kind of happened all the time. Glad I never got hit at any point, knock on wood and everything else, that it never happens in the future. But nevertheless, it's a terrible situation. Morgan State University had to cancel all homecoming activities on campus. But some of us alumni who, were going to attend events off campus are still kind of going to get together, go down there to be more. I'll be in the building. Well, you know what I mean. But I'm going to be down there, because homecoming is homecoming. And honestly, there just needs to be a change when it comes to things like that. So let's get right into the business. So in a recent story that was released, and I could not believe what I was reading. This is on hiphopdx.com, and it says, Nas Long Lost, I Am the Autobiography double album to be officially released. Now, if you don't know what that is, and you're like, damn, him and Hit Boy again, they got a double. No, it's not that. It is what would have been Nas's third album, right? Back 98, 99, Nas was ramping up for his third album to follow. It Was Written. It was a double album. And the album got bootlegged, right? To the point where damn near the whole album was out there. A lot of those songs you heard, or some of those songs you heard on what would eventually become the album I Am, not all of them, just a couple of them. And then some of those songs also wound up on the Lost Tapes project from Nas. But long story short, The album was a double album. It was supposed to be released. It was supposed to be called, originally, I thought it was supposed to be called I Am Nostradamus, like I Am Nostradamus. But it was supposed to be I Am the Autobiography, right? And it began with the song called Fetus, which Nas described himself being in the womb and being born. And it's really dope. It's been released on other projects, so you've heard it, but it was supposed to be the first song, or the first song. Well, yeah, the first song after an intro or something like that, right? Uh, so it leaked, and I think it leaked back in '98. I still had the cassette. If you're watching on video, I'm really trying to turn around and see if I have it behind me. I don't think I do, but nevertheless, it's not behind me, y'all. But nevertheless, I remember when it dropped. I remember when everybody had the bootleg cassette, and the quality was like dirty, like old '90s mixtapes dirty, but it was crazy dope. It was like, it was like, yo, Nas stepped it up even another level. Illmatic, it was written, and then I Am the Autobiography. But back in the days when albums leaked like that in advance, typically the album would get shelved as a whole, or they would do some things to rework the album, like add enough songs so that people who already had the bootleg would feel the need to buy the new thing because the majority of it was new. And the version they had was low quality and it wasn't everything, right? They used to say things like, "Oh, you got the whack version." I'm like, man, this sounds like the good version. I don't care what you say. But so they did that, and people who had heard the bootleg thought that I Am and Nostradamus never lived up to what the bootleg was. And to me, that's why stuff like the Lost Tapes was so dope, because even though that wasn't all music from that project, it contained a couple of the really dope joints like Blazer 50 that didn't make either of the other official releases. So it was always a what if situation, right? What if Nas gets to release that double album in its entirety following it was written? We'd be having a very, 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 very different discussion about Nas's career because of trajectory, right? But instead, we got I Am, which definitely had some joints on it. It wasn't bad. And then Nostradamus, which was terrible. And Project Window was on that album, but Project Window was originally on I Am the Biography. See what I'm saying? So it was like, I'm just going to say that album would have been a classic. So one thing, and I think I've said it on this show before, and I think I said it recently, is that album and albums like that have been shelved, I was like, that album will probably never see the light of day. Not in its true form. I believe that's the last thing I said on this a couple episodes back. It would, I can't see it being, released, because why? How? Now versus. So it seemed like something that would never happen. But in 50 years of hip hop, we will get that album in its entirety, probably remastered, also with some never heard before songs. I just hope they're dope. Don't just be throwing no joints you got in the queue that we probably won't like, because that's what happened with Lost Tapes too. It was like, yo, we don't need to hear everything. Test that music before. Unreleased doesn't make it good. It should be unreleased and be fire. Okay, that's it. But there's a catch. This album was supposed to be released in November on Record Store Day. I forget what day it is, but if you like Record Store Day, you already know. If you don't know Record Store Day and you don't buy records, like I have some back then, then you don't care. But supposedly that's when it's going to be released, which says to me only on vinyl and in limited quantity. So let's just go look. it says, and I have some dates for y'all. The Long Lost album, this hiphopdx.com, by the way. The Long Lost album, which is the original double disc version of the Queensbridge Rappers 1999 LP, will be released commercially for the first time on vinyl on November 24th as a part of Record Store Day, which is it's a 2023 Black Friday event, basically. Now, this is what it's described as. Described as a must-have for any Nas and diehard hip-hop head. It will also boast special edition deluxe packaging. Only 4,100 copies will be made available. Now, I kind of have a problem with this, and I'm just hoping. Not only does I'm not going to generalize, but I'm just going to guess that most hip hop heads don't automatically, you can't automatically assume they buy vinyl, right? I buy vinyl, but I don't buy everything. I honestly just try to stick to the classics, and I might have a new joint, like I got the D'Angelo joint back there, but I'm not buying vinyl on a regular basis because I already got enough stuff in my garage. I just need some essentials, right? And honestly, if I could get that on vinyl, I would. But how much is it going to cost? I'm not waiting outside of no damn line anywhere. I might use a couple friends to try to get ahead of that. But I don't want vinyl. Honestly, I want it to drop on streaming services and CD. Just give us all of that. CD, cassette, for everybody, right? Maybe less cassette. I don't know how many people collect cassettes, but vinyl, yep. CD, yeah, a couple. Some people still buy those. But definitely streaming services, or make it exclusive to a streaming service, or make it a exclusive buy on a website, something, right? Because I don't like the idea of such a sought after album, because a lot of people don't have this joint. I still have it, and I have all the songs, and I digitize it and all of that. But a lot of people would love to get their hands on this, right? Because what I have, it's not remastered. So I would prefer a more cleaned up version. But on vinyl, like that's how you announce it. I get it. But please let the public know that there will be other ways to hear it. Everybody doesn't live somewhere. There could be a huge Nas fan somewhere in the mountains of America, and there's no record stores in his area. He would have to get on a plane to get to an actual record store, and to get to a record store that would have them. That's the other part. Because every record store trying to get a copy, and they might be getting, oh, we got 5. Like, so it's just there's a point of building anticipation and a thin line between building that and frustration. And you don't want fans to be frustrated, because like I know what's going to happen if you don't put that out on digital streaming services or platforms. Somebody's going to get the album, and probably in advance, and they're gonna rip all of it to the internet, and we all gonna have it for free. It's been happening for the past 20 years, if not more. So let's stop playing. Let's not make this another disaster for this album. Put it out, okay? I've said a lot on this, but honestly, it's a dope album that the world should have heard. The Nas teased it, which was dope, on his last album, Magic 3, about Nipsey wanting to make a documentary about that album, because Nipsey felt how we felt. Man, if that would have came out, put it out. So we're going to move on, but I'll just say this. 50 years of hip hop, Nas is having a great year. We ain't just talking about the music. We're talking about everything, from the concert to the films, the video music box, everything. Hip Hop 50, like, He's having a great year. It's almost like he is the ambassador, so to speak, of 50 years of hip hop, in a lot of different ways, but also as a soloist with his career. So we'll see if I get a copy. We'll be right back there. Right back there. I'll never open it because, I want to join my headphones and you know what I mean. So that's that. So last week, or you from the future, get your ass out of here. You already know what's happening. You already know what's going down. But last week, I produced a Hip Hop 50 town hall, right? With Lisa Durden, had guests like Rod Digger and Tracy Baker Simmons and Tracy Lee, and we just discussed. Well, they discussed. I produced, but they discussed a number of things regarding hip hop, the history, the business of it, stereotypes, just things we could fix, the future, AI, just all kinds of things. And people participated. So you should definitely check that out if you subscribe to this channel, which you should be subscribed to. But y'all didn't get some of my thoughts about Kefi D and the murder of Tupac Shakur. And since the last time I've been on this platform, this news version, I just thought I'd share some of my thoughts about it. I don't like to bring stories to this podcast that have to deal with things outside of the music and the fun within the culture. But this is a thing that's kind of been a stain, which is Tupac and Biggie's murders. 50 years of hip hop. Let's get them solved, right? Let's just get them solved. And I've always thought the minute they get the definitive answer, he's guilty, close case, go to jail, or whatever it may be, they will solve Biggie's murder too. I just felt like even though they're not tied together, they're kind of tied together because of similar people in both situations. If you don't know anything about this, Tupac was murdered. It's something crazy now, like 25 or 27 years ago. And Kefi D, who was in the car of the shooter that shot at Tupac and Suge Knight, has told this story in the past about his nephew, Baby Lane, Orlando Anderson, being the shooter. Then there's been other stories about another dude in the back being the shooter and blah, blah, blah. There was even a witness who said they saw a big black arm point out the car, right? Who knows? But in recent months, Kefi D just went on a rampage of interviews where he was all but saying, I did it. And he was changing his story, right? From his original story, from his nephew to him. Now it's two different things, right? Some people could say, well, he never said he did it, but all you got to do is go watch some of those videos. You know how somebody want to tell you something so bad, they're basically telling you without just saying, I'm going to tell you something straight up. They like, yeah, man, that spaghetti was looking good. And then it was gone. Did you eat it? I don't know. Like, come on, dog. You basically said you ate it. He was doing things like that. So he said something in one of those interviews that gave the police reason, or he might have done something. He could have been bugged, whatever the case may be. They raided his crib, and then later they were able to arrest him and charge him. And he's still kind of giving mixed messages. The body cam from the cops, he's like, it's about time, basically. And I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? Then he says, I ain't saying because I ain't did. Well, which one is it, Kefi D? I think Kefi D is going to go in there and tell on everybody. And I think it will reveal everything about everything. And it may be things we already knew. It may be things we suspected, but I get the feeling that this thing is going to come to some end. And maybe it's just Kefi D did it, and that's the end. So, one of the things that I know for me and a lot of fans is over the years, like the story has changed so much, right? Of who did it from. Diddy paid for them to shoot, but why would Diddy pay for them to put a hit out on him when they jumped his nephew, who's a gang member? Like, it could be a happy circumstance, right? Maybe I want, as Puff or Love, maybe I wanted them to do this. And just so happens Tupac did that, and now it seems like it's this. Maybe Kefi D is making himself seem like he did something just to rat on other things about Puff. And that could be the case. But one thing that stood out to me, and I'm not going to take too long on this, but one thing that stood out to me in one of his interviews when he was basically pleading in the video to Puff to take care of him. Now, when he was doing that, I didn't say, oh, well, yeah, Puff paid for him to kill Tupac. No, I said to myself, Puff paid him to do things. And I don't know if it was Tupac or somebody else. And now Kefi D is like, if you do not hook me up, I'm telling. That's what it felt like. And I feel like he's about to say something about everything. Now, they did go and talk to Suge Knight about it. And Suge Knight is just not going to snitch. He's just not going to snitch. We played on the same high school team, football team. Okay. Or Pop Warner, whatever it was. He's not going to say anything. But I'm telling you, once one shoe drops and they pulling up on individuals, I don't think Puff has enough money to avoid certain things, but I think he has enough information. And I'm not just talking about people who are gone, to keep himself from being locked up like Suge Knight. So I hope it ain't no big thing that just puts a whole stain on 50 years of hip hop. I just hope the murders get resolved, because it just makes no sense that these two murders should be such a mystery 20 something years later. It just doesn't make any sense. So there you have it. Go and discover all the Kefi D interviews. Trust me, he was just talking. Look at the dates. Even if you watch old stuff, he just kept talking. So interesting. And lastly, Drake has a new album out, y'all. It's called For All the Dogs. His son Drew did the artwork. Westside Gun kind of said some stuff like, "Yo, my daughter drew the artwork, and I hear everybody. Who cares, man? Like, who cares? We don't care. We are way past staring at album covers. So if a kid drew it, oh, I don't like, right? Drake's album, because I ain't gonna hold you. If you're new here, I listened 3 times. One for impressions, second time to kind of listen deeply, and the third time to kind of confirm my feelings about it. And I have to say, this album is mid like I can't cuss. It's almost like someone selling you the same thing with a different cover, right? And I think that kind of makes it whack, even though I like a lot of the production. But the instrumental, it's a Drake album. And it's difficult for me to say I don't like this and I don't like that, or it's completely garbage, because it's really based off of songs that he's made before that I actually like. But that don't make these hot. It's kind of frustrating because just to sum it up, Drake making an album where he basically rhymes like everybody else for the majority of it is a waste of time if you are a fan. Now, some fans, they don't care. It's new. They don't care. New means new to them. It doesn't mean you compare anything. But my problem with that is it's like if you rap like Migos or 21 Savage or Future or whoever, why should I come to your album to hear you do their style when I can go to their album for that style? At least it's their style. And I think that's my biggest gripe with this because it's like, yo, Drake, for the past couple albums, don't get me wrong, some of them joints I rock with, but for the past couple of albums has been phoning it in big time. He's just doing the same thing over and over. That's like open every pack of Nowadays, eat the candy, then wrap the wrapper back up and put it up, and here you go. It's empty. I already ate it. It's not. It's what's the difference? It's like album cover behind me. I just take the debut out and put the second album in or something. It's kind of like, but what are we doing here? Is this what's the difference? There's a difference, but what's the difference? It's just shenanigans. It's too shenanigans, theatrics, all this stuff. And I knew it. I knew something was up because why would you tease this album so crazy? Not release at midnight to kind of keep your fans at bay. Release in the morning. And you know some of them are going to holler classic and he's getting better and the improvements and gloat and blah, blah, blah. And again, it's not the worst album in the world. It's just we heard it before. What's the difference? Sure, it's not the house music inspired joint, but it's the other one, the Certified Lover Boy. It's like, what's the difference between that and this? Like, the album has 23 tracks and it is an hour and 24 minutes. It's essentially a double album. It's not all bad. But just like with Scorpion, for me, you skip to the joints you like, and maybe you throw them on a playlist, and you never come back to listen to the album in its entirety. Now, I'm not a Drake hater. I have a number of his albums. I think I might have all of them, except for maybe Scorpion and some of the mixtapes and EPs because I like them. But at some point, y'all gotta be real with yourselves. He making the same music. But what I want to see, and he don't have to do this, but if he's going to put it this way, he reminds me of where Jay-Z was several years back, where he was so successful, he couldn't he couldn't diverge from the diverge. Is that the right word? He just had to do the same thing. Basically, he had to go for the party and the club hits for radio. He just had to do the same things because if he tried to say, okay, on this album, I'm just going to take it back to boom bap, he would lose the momentum. He would lose the success. And he was afraid of that. There's certain artists who weren't afraid of that. Kanye was a perfect example. He's just like, yo, I'm going to just sing on here. Same thing with Lil Wayne. Yo, I'm a rock star now. People are either going to take it or leave it, but they're able to come back. But Jay-Z didn't want to take that gamble. And I kind of feel like with Drake, he does all these things that makes you think, set. Oh, Wu-Tang's supposed to be on this album. You know, oh, such and such with Diddy when he got slapped. And you wonder to yourself, what was all that build-up? You talking to J. Cole like y'all doing a joint album together. But then we listen, J. Cole has the best verse on the whole damn album. Double album. Best verse. By a long shot. Hearing that made me just want to hear new J. Cole. So it's not to rant. Again, I'm a Drake fan. So I'm speaking from a fan's perspective. I know there are fans think he can't do no wrong, or if I like 4 joints, I like the whole album. But I gotta say, there was just a part of me that pressed play and felt like, I feel like I did this already. Why do it again? Why waste my time when there's so much music being released on a regular basis? I'm just going to go in and grab the joints I like, put them on the playlist, the end. So I'll say, if you hate Drake, don't listen to this. You're going to hate him even more. If you like Drake, I'd say check it out. Maybe you don't feel the way I feel. Maybe you like it for what it is. If you love Drake, you've already called it a classic. That's going to do it for me. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Spill, Threads, and all that at Vegas World INC. And also, please know this podcast is available in audio form on all podcasting platforms. Subscribe, review, and share it with people you know would like this content. And if you are like, man, I want to see you, man, come on, I want to see you on the tele. Well, okay, go to YouTube and type in the search bar Hip Hop Now Podcast. You see the logo, find it, subscribe, like, share, but more importantly, comment. Are you a fan of Drake? What do you think about this album? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Until next time, y'all, I'm not a critic, I'm a fan. Peace.